Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Inmex SMM and Informa Markets are happy to welcome you today to the last of the Tri-Series webinar being planned by us for this month. Inmex SMM is South Asia's largest maritime event held biannually, jointly organized by Informa Markets India and Hamburg Messe und Congress. The 2021 edition from December 15 to 17 will be the 12th edition of Inmex SMM India and will see 3 days of exhibition complemented by conferences and targeted B2B programs. Let's have a look at the Inmex SMM video.
The type of response which the world is giving to this exhibition is already showing that Indian maritime industry is picking up. There can be new B2B transactions which can take place through these exhibitions, and they're very, very useful.
It's definitely, it compares favorably with the largest maritime conferences and exhibitions anywhere in the world. So in that sense, it brings us a lot of pride that such an event is happening in our, backyard.
Is basically here to come here and understand the advancements and the innovations in the shipping industry. And it was a great opportunity to network with the big names of the industry, and we really liked it here.
Excellent opportunity to meet our customers, where we have the opportunity to exchange information here on our stand and see actually a product outside of a ship.
Quite nice, well organized.
Good work. Very nice. It was well managed.
Everything is fantastic.
Informa PLC is the leading international events, intelligence, and scholarly research group listed on the London Stock Exchange and a member of FTSE 100 with colleagues working in more than 30 countries. Our portfolio is comprised of more than 550 international B2B events and brands in markets including healthcare and pharmaceutical, infrastructure, construction and real estate, marine, fashion and apparel, gems and jewelry, hospitality, health and nutrition, among others. Our webinar today on leveraging the disruptive power of 3D printing and additive manufacturing seeks to explore the opportunity space while raising awareness and knowledge about this technology within the maritime industry. 3D printing an object allows for several possibilities and advantages such as novel design, lightweight structures, higher degree of customization in its long-term impact, offers new business models, reshoring of production facilities, significant changes in the supply chain, open innovation, and the list continues. To discuss this innovative technology, we have with us an elite panel to include Rear Admiral Anil Kumar Verma and ex-CMD Garden Reach Shipbuilders and Engineering Limited, Dr. Abdul Rahim, Corporate Office and Regional Manager, Middle East and South Asia, Class NK, Mr. Devansh Patak, Specialist Startup Ecosystem, the World Economic Forum India, Dr. Mary, Senior Engineer, Materials and Welding from ABS Technology. Our distinguished moderator for the panel is Mr. Rajesh Nath, Managing Director, India's Operations BDMA India Services Private Limited. A brief introduction to our moderator. Mr. Rajesh Nath has more than 31 years of experience working in various industries in Germany and India. He has been accorded the Cross of Order of Merit, highest civilian award from the German president for promoting Indo-German trade in the engineering sector. He has a degree in Bachelor's Engineering Mechanical with distinction. He also has a business management degree, first rank gold medal. Mr. Nath joined the Indian office of the German Engineering Federation, BDMA, as General Manager in 1999. He was appointed Director of the company in 2002. Since 2008, he is heading the organization as the Managing Director. Mr. Nath is a fellow member of the International Council of Consultants, a member of the Institution of Engineers in India, fellow member of Mining, Geological and Metallurgical Institute, and other well-known bodies in India. Welcome, Mr. Nath. We are honored to have you and the other panelists. Invite you to take over and conduct the session.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ranjit, for the kind introduction. And thanks to Informa Markets India for organizing this web seminar on this very relevant topic. Friends, as the additive manufacturing evolves in the 21st century, it has been hailed as a revolutionary tool and a disruptive technology across multiple industries. Whereas originally, additive manufacturing was consigned to rapid prototyping used to test models prior to committing them to production, additive manufacturing is now increasingly used to produce high-performance parts intended for end use in demanding applications. So friends, to discuss further on this topic of leveraging the destructive power of 3D printing and additive manufacturing, we have our esteemed panelists today. I would briefly like to introduce our panelists. First of all, we are honored to have Rear Admiral A.K. Verma, VSM. Admiral Verma did his mechanical engineering from NIT Jamshedpur. He was commissioned in the Indian Navy on 28 January 1978 and did his specialization in marine engineering from Naval College of Engineering, Lonavala, and aeronautical engineering from Air Force Technical College, Bangalore. For his distinguished service in the Indian Navy, Admiral Verma was awarded the Vashisht Seva Medal by the President of India. After a highly successful career in Indian Navy for 34 years, Admiral Verma was appointed as Chairman and Managing Director of Garden Reach Shipbuilders and Engineers Limited, Kolkata, on 1st November 2011. The shipyard handled a record number of 33 ships during his tenure. This included the most prestigious India's first ever export warship for Government of Mauritius, CGS Barracuda. Admiral Verma was chairman of CII Eastern Region for the year 2015-16. He was also president of the Indian Shipbuilders Association during 2016. Post-retirement now, Admiral Verma is an advisor in Union Public Service Commission and an independent director on board of the Central PSU Andrew Yule and Company Limited, Kolkata. A pleasure and privilege to have you with us today, Admiral Anil Kumar Verma. Friends, next I would like to introduce Dr. Abdul Rahim. Dr. Abdul Rahim is the General Manager, Regional Manager, Middle East and South Asia for Nippon Kaiji Kyoaki Class NK based in Dubai. He has been with Class NK for 28 years, serving long stints in various roles in Tokyo, Singapore, London and Mumbai prior to Dubai. He started his career, interestingly, with Cochin Shipyard. Dr. Rahim holds a bachelor degree in naval architecture and shipbuilding from Cochin University of Science and Technology, and master's and doctoral degree in ship structures from Hiroshima University. Pleasure to have you with us on board today, Dr. Abdul Rahim.
Thank you very much.
Next, friends, I would like to introduce Dr. Dongchung Mary Kyu, Senior Engineer Material and Welding, ABS Technology. Mary is a PhD in Materials Science and Engineering from University of Tennessee. She has been working as Senior Engineer for 4 years at ABS Technology. Dr. Mary's main role is to develop engineering requirements in materials and welding for marine and offshore applications. Thank you, Dr. Mary, for being with us. And although it is 6 o'clock in the morning for you, so we feel really happy that despite of the odd hour, you have joined us for this discussion. Thank you very much, Dr. Mary.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Devansh Pathak. After graduating from IIT Kanpur, Devansh got his management consulting, driving emerging technologies initiatives for IT Minister of Telangana State. He was instrumental in conceptualizing the upcoming National Center for Additive Manufacturing in Hyderabad in partnership with Ministry of Electronics and IT Government of India. Currently, Devansh is curating the startup ecosystem in India and engaging startups on World Economic Forum's projects locally and globally. So thank you, Devansh, and thank you to all the panelists for joining us for this interaction today. And also on behalf of all the panelists and Informa Markets India, a hearty welcome to all our viewers and participants today. So let me start first with Dr. Rahim and Dr. Mary. When we talk about additive manufacturing, there is a strong interplay between materials and printing, which is actually very crucial for the success of additive manufacturing. This interplay determines the quality and properties of the printed parts, affecting process stability and product quality. I would like to hear your views, and maybe we would start with Dr. Rahim, and then I would request Dr. Mary also to share her views. So, Dr. Rahim.
Thank you, Mr. Nath. It's actually a privilege to join this webinar. And yes, the interplay between material and printing in additive manufacturing is indeed very important. If you look at the history of additive manufacturing, it all started with the invention of optical modeling with ultraviolet rays and photosensitive resin in early 1980s in Japan. And then later on, it was commercialized and applied by Japanese and US companies. Of course, we don't use much resin these days in maritime applications, but we mainly consider metallic components as a target to be manufactured by AI. And the quality of the product definitely depends on the interplay, as you rightly said, between material and printing. The material, or we call it the feedstock, should be carefully selected and managed throughout the process. Especially if you consider the metallic powder, I'm going a little bit technical into it. The flowability, spreadability, fillability, and these parameters are to be ascertained, and also the particle diameter. Maybe it can be from 20 to 105 micrometers, depending on which method you are using. And if you look at the ISO standards 17296, that actually gives 4 kinds of metal manufacturing processes that can be used in additive manufacturing. I just named them: the binder jetting, the material jetting, the powder bed fusion, and the directed energy disposition. And the management of the feedstock is also very important. How you store it and how you control it. So for example, the aluminum powder or titanium powder may combust on reaction with air. So you'll have to be very careful about the storage, the control of moisture level, the measures against unforeseen accidents, like they shouldn't come into contact with oxygen, ignition source or combustible materials, etc. So you'll have to be very careful in the interplay between the material and the printing process. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rahim, for sharing your views. Now I would request Dr. Mary also to share her thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm happy to share with everyone, and I appreciate we are invited to attend this panel discussion. Yes, as Dr. Nate said, material and building parameters are very important, which can affect the quality and property, including the part dimension control, material properties, and the different types of defects. The part dimension is mainly affected by the process stability and different type of building parameters, which could be controlled with support of the process simulation software for better thermal management. And considering from the material property may be affected by the building parameters, and the additive manufacturing has a very small melt pool and could have the high heating or cooling rate. So typically the strength could be achievable compared with the same grade traditional manufactured material. But the Sharpie or fractal toughness is challenging for the same grade. And so for the maritime industry, so the vessel or the structure may have the dynamic loading. So, and the fatigue life could be a challenging part when we adopt this technology. And considering from the quality, the traditional NDT technique are still relied for the quality inspection on this AM part to detect different type of defects. But sometimes traditional ADT technique may have limitations for the complex shapes. So currently, some in-process inspection technology is under developing and may be implemented in the future. So that's what I'm thinking for this point.
Thank you, Dr. Rahim and Dr. Mary, for giving us further details on this important interplay between materials and printing. Taking this further now, I would like to come to Admiral Verma as well as Devansh. Now, one of the concerns, Admiral Verma, is about the additive manufacturing the material, which are expensive by a factor of about 10 to 12, and the materials which are used in conventional manufacturing processes. So similarly, since the material being costly, the output from additive manufacturing is also correspondingly going to be more expensive than the traditional manufacturing process. So do you feel collaboration between suppliers and startups can be beneficial here to reduce the cost? I would first request Admiral Verma to share his views, then I would come to Devansh.
Thank you, Mr. Nath. Firstly, I would say that it's a pleasure to be part of this very, very important panel discussion on a very important technology, modern technology, and the technique that is being used all over the world. Your question is in two parts, so I'll just break them up in that. The first part is that the materials are very expensive, the AM material. So if you look at, especially in the maritime domain, if you see, here again, the maritime domain is also again in two parts. One is the civil maritime and one is military maritime. So when you go to the military side, the cost is not a factor. If the technique or the product is going to make me more efficient, then we are going to use it. So that's one part I just wanted to mention, that especially if you look at submarine manufacturing, etc., there are many components and parts are now using this technique today, and I have been part of some of those selection process, and the cost was never a criteria. But that's just a different perspective I'm giving to the cost. But the second part of your question that you use there is relevant, that if the cost remains, as you mentioned, 10 to 12 times, that's a hell of a lot. If any product is to be marketed, and if the material cost is 10 to 12 times going to be costly. So definitely we need to then look at the cheaper material, cheaper cost overall. And I have no doubt that the way forward in this is to get into the either a R&D route or these days a startup route. Because if you look at startup, And here Devansh will throw much more light. What is a startup today? To me, and a startup today is a R&D factory, because these young people, all the time they are thinking, So your suggestion is very correct that if we take the help of these startups and create a ecosystem of interacting with them, then that interplay will definitely give us better materials which could be cheaper. So on that, I would like Devansh to throw much more light on that aspect of it. And so I will just hand over to Devansh from here.
Thank you, Admiral Verma. Yes, Devansh, since you are connected with the startups, we are all ears to what you have to say.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for inviting me to this session. So I am completely new to the maritime domain, but I have some experience of working with startups and also consulting with the government for developing of this National Additive Manufacturing Center. So I'll come from that perspective. If you look at any post-industrial revolution technology or even basic technologies like electricity, all of them used to be too expensive at some point in time. But eventually, as and when the innovations come up, all of them become more and more standardized, and the adoption rate is higher, maturity is always there. So broadly, there is one long-term aspect and there is a short-term aspect. Like Admiral Verma rightly mentioned, in the long-term, R&D is the only key to get our own powders produced in India, so that we don't pay all the custom duties and the IP costs which are associated with all of it. If you break it down, a large portion of that is because it is being produced outside of India. Now, on the short-term perspective, we should look at it as a total cost of ownership, the TCO of the whole process. The powder is just one component, but then there are so many other components, and there is scope for optimization for all of them. So there is a raw material cost, there is printer, maintenance, operator cost, all sorts of things. And if we were to, as an industry as a whole, if we want to learn lessons, we can definitely look at the aerospace and defense sector, how they are using additive manufacturing for very specialized use cases, so that the cost is mitigated because of the fast production cycles and the R&D development cycles. The product gets innovated so many times and the lead time is reduced sometimes by 80% compared to the conventional processes, that the competitive advantage which a person gets in the market is huge. And there are multiple examples from the aerospace and defense industry. If you look at the startup ecosystem globally, most of the players who are either in the software side of things or in the material side, all of them are serving aerospace and defense industry because they are reached the stage where they are early adopters. And there are countless examples where we can look at them and learn from them. I'll stop here.
Devansh, in fact, going one step further from what you mentioned about application of additive manufacturing in aerospace industry. Now, in your opinion, Devansh, which are the other sectors where India can benefit from additive manufacturing?
So the immediate focus goes back to the national strategy, where we brainstormed with a huge multi-stakeholder panel on which industries to focus on. One of them is electronics, because electronics is a very fast-moving industry where products keep on outdoing each other and there's a lot of competition. There's a Moore's law which says that the microprocessing power just keeps on compounding. So wherever we need quick production cycles for R&D, that is where AM has a edge over other technologies. So electronics is definitely one of those sectors. And also Government of India has a push of indigenous electronics manufacturing, especially in smartphones, and there are lots of schemes which are coming out for supporting this. Then there is a precision healthcare as a sector where you can do surgical models which can be made via additive manufacturing, which are customized for specific needs in your own body for biomechanics. And there is a lot of R&D work which is going on in AIIMS and even in ISC Bangalore, which is looking into healthcare. There are implants, there is the surgical instruments which require a certain degree of precision and quality. So whichever industry requires very high degree of quality certification and requires fast cycles of product development, those industries are ideally perfectly fit for this technology. Or within the maritime industry, the components where these cycles are required to be shorter will give the industry an edge over others.
Thank you. I think you've highlighted the importance of aerospace industry, automotive, maritime industry, and of course the sector of medical technology that is coming up very strongly, where India also has a lot of potential. So thank you for that, Devansh. Admiral Verma, coming back to the cost factor, we were discussing about the cost, and Devansh also spoke about the total cost of ownership. So as we discussed in the earlier question, Admiral Verma, that actually the cost of the product from additive manufacturing is much higher. And you rightly pointed out, for the defense sector, perhaps it doesn't play such a crucial role. But if we look at going for the future or going ahead, Admiral Verma, do you see that these costs can be made somewhat closer at par with traditional manufacturing?
Yeah, thanks, Vishwanath. Well, the precise answer to your question would be very difficult to say at this stage. But we can look at the broader perspective in this. You take the example of solar energy. When we started producing solar energy, it was very expensive. I mean, everybody said it is just not going to be viable. Today, you look at what is happening. So, as Devans was also mentioning, as more and more R&D progresses, all these issues will be looked at and the cost will keep coming down. So, what I would say is that my personal guess is the cost will come down. There is no doubt in that. And that is the trend of any scientific development. It happens like that. Initially, the costs are always high and then it keeps coming down as R&D. But the other aspect also we have to look at, that 3D printing and additive manufacturing does give a lot of advantages. And those also will be a factor to consider about the viability of the technology looking ahead. I mean, quality, the ones were just mentioning about it. Definitely, you can achieve a much higher level of quality by 3D printing and additive manufacturing. When I see my own shipbuilding experience, when we do this traditional way of welding and manufacturing, plate by plate, the body of a ship, the kind of finish and the quality that we look forward to doesn't get achieved. And I am very sure additive manufacturing can do that. The wastage is another area. 3D printing can really reduce wastage a lot, because in shipbuilding, almost 20% of material get wasted in cutting the plate to a particular size. So I think wastage is an area where 3D printing can definitely give us advantage. Jobs of repetitive nature, prototyping requirements. So there are so many such areas where the additive manufacturing will give us an edge, and R&D will bring the cost down. So overall, I think times to come, it will definitely become much more margin-wise and cost-wise competitive and high.
I think, thank you, Admiral Verma. You gave a very good example of the solar energy. In fact, now it is almost at par with the thermal energy. And I think same trend we are seeing also with the batteries for e-vehicles.
Exactly.
And also the cost has come down dramatically over the period of time. And I think these are very good examples. And as you rightly said, as more work, more R&D work is put into it, the cost would reduce in the future also. Dr. Mary, on one side we spoke about the cost, but also on the other side there is apprehensions, Dr. Mary. In fact, what I would like to ask you is, what should we do for approval of the additive manufactured part, especially when we talk about the shipbuilding industry?
Sure. This is a good question. So American Bureau of Shipping, ABS, is a class society between the shipbuilder and the ship owner. And when the shipbuilder wants to adopt AM technology, ABS can do the approval of the AM facilities and AM part by the review and survey. So the fabrication of AM part should follow the standardized AM process from the design, feedstock, pre-build, build, and post-build process. The approval of a part should be supported by the approval test and test result, including the NDT test, material test, and prototype functional test. Prototype functional test could be different depending on the application. It could be load test for the structure. It could be the balance test for some rotary machinery. It could be pressure test for some pipe or pressure vessel. And the acceptance criteria should meet the equivalent or exceed the same traditional manufactured process. So currently, we adopt the standard for the AM process developed by the ASTM F42 committee, and the qualification of AM part, the qualification test could refer ABS guide or AWS D20.1 committee standard, and recently ASME also published a new standard for the application. So depending on the application, the acceptance criteria could be the maritime class rule and all the different industry standards depending on the target application of those AM parts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mary, for explaining this concept also. And coming to Dr. Rahim now, the same topic, Dr. Rahim, how class societies are gearing up actually for additive manufacturing for the maritime industry, Dr. Rahim. If you could detail out or elaborate this point.
Yes, indeed. Class societies are already gearing up. Maybe for the past 3-4 years, we are working on it. Because as normal, the technology first develops for aerospace, automobile, then maritime catches up. So in additive manufacturing as well, it's the same. And most of the class societies, major class societies, have already issued the guidelines for additive manufacturing or say 3D printing. And the Class NK also recently issued the guidelines, so whoever wants it, go to the webpage and download it. It actually specifies the details on feedstock certification, approval of manufacturing process, testing of products, so on and so forth. And also, it also specifies the components that can be manufactured by AM. As of today, not all components can be manufactured by AM, but we are specifying certain things. Especially, we allow components that can be made by casting, can be done. Forging, the technology is a little more higher, and I'm not sure whether, as of now, there will be any manufacturers who can do additive manufacturing of components that can be done by forging. Say for hull structure, maybe the castings like rudder frame, stern frame, rudder stock, so on and so forth. Then from the engine side, say for a diesel engine, the connecting rod, the piston crowns, cylinder covers can be manufactured. Then and also the major components like crankshaft, thrust shaft, intermediate shaft, propeller shaft, all can be done. Then the power transmission. Then for steam turbines, the turbine rotors, discs, blades, and in addition to the normal components like valves, pipe fittings, etc., and the component parts of boilers and pressure vessels, and all this can be manufactured. Provided, as Mary mentioned, you have to follow the different processes and the methodologies of approval, right from feedstock to manufacturing process, the testing, and that can be similar to a conventional type of manufacturing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rahim, for these points. Now, next, I would like to come back to you, Admiral Verma, and maybe I would also like Dr. Rahim, from your vast experience in this maritime industry. So, Admiral Verma, when we look at the Indian scenario now, skilling, skill gap, lack of skilling in India, that is one issue we have been facing, and of course, government has been very progressive in it with the Skill India program. If we look at additive manufacturing now in particular and its application in the maritime industry, so Admiral Verma, do we have these skill sets available presently for application of additive manufacturing in maritime industry? And what does the industry need to do at this stage?
Thanks, Mr. Nath. I think you have asked a very, very relevant question on the skill part of it, because unfortunately in our country, skill has been a gray area, not just in additive manufacturing. If we look at the overall industry scenario in the country, I don't want to get into that. It's just a topic by itself to discuss as far as skills are concerned. I would like to flag 2-3 points here on the skill part. Firstly, the Government of India has now started a Skill India project, and there is a special ministry created for skilling that. So I'm right now not directly involved in the manufacturing sector, but those who are involved in in taking this technology forward, I'm sure there will be some associations like yours and other manufacturing associations. I think we should get in touch with the Ministry of Skill which is presently under, I think it's clubbed with Mr. Pradhan's ministry. So they have got sectoral projects to develop a particular skill in the country. So that would be a good initiative which can be taken. Of course, ultimately the training has to be imparted in various ITIs and the apprentice schools which are there in, like every shipyard has an apprentice school. So I think this time has come to start teaching or start including this in the curriculum of industries where this technology is going to be used, aerospace, automotive, somebody was mentioning about medical equipment or shipyard. So the training processes could start over there. But the answer to your question would be that my guess is that we are not prepared as far as the skills are concerned. Exact figures are not known to me. But like any other sector, I can say we are not prepared. We got the technology, but the skill is missing. And the couple of suggestions that I made is the way forward I would recommend for taking the skilling up for the sector. Thank you.
Dr. Rahim, with your vast experience also in the maritime industry as well as working in various countries, how would you assess the skill level when we are talking about application of additive manufacturing? Especially if we look at the Indian scenario.
Yeah, to be frank, in the Indian scenario, as Rear Admiral correctly mentioned it, we lack the adequate skill set. Even worldwide, AIM is just picking up in the maritime industry, so it hasn't yet reached the maturity level. So it may take, I think, more time to get to where we actually want it to be. The main reason is the quality. Quality cannot be compromised. So we need to have quality players to manufacture these components. If it is just like a toy gun or something, it is very easy, where the quality doesn't matter. Whereas when it comes to maritime product, you'll have to be extremely careful. The component has to fulfill its quality and dimensional requirements. That means, in effect, it should be fit for purpose. So in this sense, even worldwide, I think the skill set is not that up to the level for maritime industry. There are not many manufacturers who can do this at the moment for our industry, especially for critical items like crankshaft or connecting rod or propeller shaft and other things. There are small products like bollards, chocks, valves. They can easily be manufactured, but special skill set is needed for high value items. In Indian scenario, I don't think we have enough manufacturers. There are some of the countries, like for example Japan, some companies like the Kawasaki Heavy Industries, they are gearing up to manufacture products through AIM. And if you come to some of the products, recently in Netherlands, they have made a propeller for a tugboat. It's about 1.3 meter diameter. They have manufactured it. And also in another place, an Italian startup, they made a small yacht. They completely 3D printed a small yacht. They maybe, as Rear Admiral was mentioning, to scale it up to a big submarine, it will take a long time. But the small things like the yachts and other things, it's already being done on a prototype basis. So skill set, I think maybe in the near future, maybe we will have adequate enough to do that. But currently, especially in the Indian scenario, it is very difficult.
Thank you, Dr. Rahim and Rear Admiral Verma for sharing your views on the skill sets level in this industry presently. Coming to you, Devansh, when we talk about the shipbuilding industry, it's a heavy engineering industry, a traditional industry. How do you see the potential for automation in this traditional hardcore industry, Devansh?
Great question, sir. So I can give you an example of a program which World Economic Forum is running. What they do is they call it a lighthouse program for factories, where they identify 5 or 6 key pioneers in emerging technology adoption of factories, and they have a set of parameters to benchmark that. And then every year they publish the best practices which come out of that report. So I can quote a few examples from that. Like, for example, there is something known as smart assets, which is industrial IoT, which self on its own reports data, takes care of its own predictive maintenance, can also pinpoint bottlenecks in the whole operational system of the supply chain. So that is an emerging area which shipbuilding industry can also adopt. Another one is around smart procurement. So this is a whole grown solution There's a startup in India known as Moglix, which recently became a unicorn over $1 billion valuation. And simply what it does is that it brings all the suppliers on a single platform, a single window platform, where you get all the Amazon kind of a view, and you can just pick and choose and give your criteria and do your procurement from a single window. That is a huge thing which shipping industry, because there are so many components which get into any ship. Then there is inventory management solutions which optimize the inventory at any given point in time. There are several applications like quality assurance as a service. There are agencies which can come in and plug and play their solution to your automated, but it requires certain level of digital readiness though. But once you have that in place, you can get it audited in a matter of days, and you know areas where you can apply several other technologies. There's also, since ship is a huge investment, it's such a immense design, there are various visualization tools available which help you optimize before you start building anything. So you can create a digital twin out of your idea, your design, your concept, and that basically shrinks down the whole lead time for go to market because you have the view so clearly in front of you. So yeah, there are various applications, and startups are very, very active in this particular segment.
Right. And if I may add to that, Devansh, I think also one point you mentioned which would have immense benefit is the concept of condition monitoring or remote monitoring. Now, if you could do that, I think that will be a big benefit, especially for the shipping or maritime industry. And what we have seen also in the other industrial areas, especially during pandemic, where man-to-man or people-to-people contact was difficult, travel was difficult. So especially with condition monitoring and application of Industry 4.0, I think it has really benefited some of the industries. This really highlights the advantages and potential for automation or Industry 4.0 also in this hardcore traditional industry also. Coming to Dr. Mary. Dr. Mary, of course, we spoke about various benefits also of additive manufacturing for the maritime industry. But how do you evaluate the risk level arising from components, materials, or processes through additive manufacturing, especially when we talk about the maritime industry, Dr.
Yeah, sure. This is a good question. Yeah, when we adopt a new technology into the field, the risk estimation is very important. So typically, the risk level could be estimated by the probability of the part failure and the consequence of that failure. So for the maritime industry, the risk could be high if the failure of the part will cause loss of control of the vessel or equipment. We consider as high risk. And if it causes some inconvenience for the operation, maybe the risk level could be medium. And if it does not affect the operation, so the risk level could be low. But generally, the spare part for the onboard spare part are subjective to the wear and need replacement. So the risk should be low. So and if the part has failure, it's easier to use another spare part to change and back the vessel back to operation. And for the structure, if under both static loading and dynamic loading, the risk could be considered high. And for the engine part that Dr. Abdul mentioned, engine component or propellers could be high risk since the failure may lead to the loss of lost control of the vessel. So it's the risk estimation is relatively, but it can give us some idea when this is adopted into the application. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Mary. And this is a very important point, what you pointed out here, Dr. Mary, especially when we talk about the additive manufacturing in maritime industry. In fact, Dr. Rahim, let me come to you. When we've spoken about application of additive manufacturing in maritime industry, so how would it look? How would the future look if you look at 2025, the next 5 years, Dr. Rahim? Now I would request you to be a soothsayer and forecast for us what would be the application of additive manufacturing for maritime industry in the next 4 to 5 years.
I should say additive manufacturing has an extremely bright future. If not, it is the future. Mainly because of the advantages. Because if any process is of any benefit, people will surely go after it. And additive manufacturing, the overall cost you can reduce and you can save also time, overall time. Though the material cost may be high, if you can reduce the material wastage, just like Rear Admiral mentioned that for steel cutting, 20% is the wastage. So if you use the AM, that can be reduced, then warehousing can be reduced, then the shipping cost can be reduced. That means overall you can save a lot of time also. So for example, a company in Mumbai, they need a requirement of a specific spare part. It is not available there. So they have to order maybe Europe or Far East or wherever it is. And then you place the order, they fabricate it, they wait for the next shipment, keep it in the warehouse, then the product arrives by plane or ship or whatever to Mumbai, then it has to go through customs, you have to pay the customs fee. So there can be a lot of delay also. So overall, in addition, in place of all this, if there is a AM facility in Mumbai, you can easily get it manufactured there. So it is as simple as that. And also, you can do away with all the complicated assemblies, and you can manufacture product in one single stage. Again, saving time and cost. Then the downtown cost. For example, the ship has a major accident and the component needs to be replaced immediately. And say, for example, rudder stock or propeller shaft. So if you want a new one, it may take months or weeks. So if you have AM facility, the downtime cost can be drastically reduced. So the cost benefit and time benefit, so in that sense, is mainly depending on the component. And maybe in the future, what I feel is currently the ship's engine room workshop, they have a workshop lathe for making small components. Maybe in the future, in addition to the lathe, there can be a 3D printer in the workshop. Or you can do away with the lathe completely and replace it with a 3D printer so that all the small components like valves, pipe fittings, impellers, etc. can be made to order, and there is no need to keep an inventory as well on board. The benefit in terms of cost and time is enormous. So that's why I think the additive manufacturing has a very, very bright future in our industry. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rahim, for highlighting the benefits of additive manufacturing for the maritime industry. So, Dr. Mary, on one side we heard about the benefits of additive manufacturing in maritime industry from Dr. Rahim. What I would like to ask you, Dr. Mary, is what can be the barriers for implementation of additive manufacturing in maritime industry?
Sure. Yeah. This is important. Yeah, AM has many advantages and also some challenges for the maritime application. So the first challenge, and many people mentioned, is the cost. For the maritime, the structure may be very big, so the cost could be very high. And the additive manufacture, this concept has become broader and broader, and it includes different type of process. And for the PPF process may have the size limitation, maybe several hundred millimeter by several hundred millimeter. The maximum is about 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter build envelope. So for this process, we target the spare part application. And for the large structure, we can consider the DED process, direct energy deposition. For this process, the technology is improved by the improved deposition rate. And currently, some technology can use the energized wire and get the 10 times build rate than the typical DED process. So as the technology develops better and better, the cost will be reduced. And so that's no doubt. It will become lower and lower. The cost will become lower and lower. And for PBF process, and the industry also spend a lot of effort to reduce the cost by different type of optimization, nest different pipes together, and using different methods to lower this cost. So the future, so this challenge could be, could be overcome step by step. So the other challenge I want to mention is the additive manufacture is different from traditional manufacture. There are a lot of build parameters. So, and the output is the part quality and material property. So the relationship between the build parameter and the output result could be very complex. So there are a lot of projects are developed a tool using different type of new techniques such as machine learning, AI technique, or statics decision tree, or statics analysis to figure out the relationship between those input and the output of the part quality and material properties. So the progress may be slow, but it is keep on developing by different industries for different applications. So compared with aerospace and medical industry, maritime is slightly slow, and we can keep on learning the lessons learned from other industries to adopt this technology. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Mary. I think a very important point that one can learn from the other industries, which can be good practices, can also be adopted here in the maritime industry. Rear Admiral Verma, let me come to you, sir. The government has played an important role, Admiral Verma, for the development of the shipbuilding industry in India. So what role can you foresee, or do you foresee, if we talk about additive manufacturing in the shipbuilding industry? Can the government of India support this endeavor?
So it's a very good question, I must say here. But a part of it we discussed a little earlier also out of this. You see, just now Ms. Mary was explaining about how in shipbuilding it has not come. This shipbuilding is even today a little traditional manufacturing industry. But the fact is that the government has already given instructions to adopt Industry 4.0. And when we have that instructions to various shipyards, they are working on it. But, what I would say is that in maritime industry, there is a little bit of myth which goes around in slow progress of additive manufacturing, I would say. I'll just quote one or two examples. You go and meet the shipbuilders, and one of the things they will say is, oh no, this can only be used for a small parts. One of the myths that people have, that additive manufacturing is not for a huge project or a huge part like ship or submarine or something, So that's a myth. So we have to somehow break that myth and bring that technology. The second myth that goes around is about strength. People feel that, because, if you look at a mindset of manufacturing, typical manufacturing is that you take a metal part, and if you want to make a shape or size, you cut it. You don't add anything into it. So that concept is slightly different, but there are now technology which is proving that the strength does not reduce in additive manufacturing. So there are certain myths that we have to break as well, in addition to government trying to support this. And that is where organizations like yours and all these people who are pushing this technology, such conferences, etc., can help in that. We can have conferences, we call the shipyard manufacturers, we call the government representatives also in that, and explain the advantages. We just now discussed a lot of advantages. The quality is one big advantage of additive manufacturing. And then there are so many other wastages. I was myself mentioning about wastage which happens in shipbuilding. So at the government level, they are focused to bring in artificial intelligence, machine learning, even 3D prototyping. So government is focused, but we need to somehow bring a synergy between this particular industry, the shipbuilders, both private and government, and the government. So we can have that approach to bring more focus on this, bring out the advantages of it, take out the myths that are there around it, and then the government support will definitely come into this as well.
This is a very good suggestion that you have given, Mr. Verma, about I think what is important is, we were talking earlier of interplay. So interplay between the industry, government and R&D institutes. I think if we can get these three into interplay and interconnect with each other, I think this will really benefit the industry. So thank you for this suggestion, Mr. Verma. Devansh, coming to you perhaps for the last question of our panel discussion. We heard about this National Additive Manufacturing Strategy, which was released by the Ministry of Electronic and Information Technology in 2020. So Devansh, would you be able to highlight some points of that, and how can this vision be realized, what was projected in this National Additive Manufacturing Strategy?
Sure. So this is an amazing initiative by Ministry. So what they have done is they did a whole benchmarking exercise of what is exactly that other countries are doing, what is China doing, what is Europe doing, and as a country, how can we create impact on the ground. So some of the objectives that they highlighted, one of them was that how do we nurture the domestic AM industry, not just for adoption of AM itself, but to produce the metal printers themselves, the high value commodities, which will really bring in the innovation and the high skilled people which will be required for doing such innovations. That is one. Secondly, they want to reduce import dependency as much as possible, because currently all the powder is imported from outside and it entails a lot of cost, and it's not a viable business model for a lot of industry players as of now, especially the smaller ones, the MSMEs, which do not have access to such technologies at all. Thirdly, they are promoting innovation and research infrastructure. So there are existing laboratories, R&D facilities in the defense sector, the PSU facilities, which they are basically liberalizing, saying that the startups in that particular area, if they submit a particular proposal, then they will get access to the facility to test their own solutions for rapid prototyping, those kind of activities. And some kind of a shared infrastructure model is what is proposed. Broadly, in terms of sectors, we can say they are planning centers of excellences for each of the priority sectors. So one center of excellence for defense and aerospace industry in one of the SEZs where there's a local supply chain ecosystem exists. That is where they want to set up a center of excellence. Then one in photonics, one in electronics, one in medical equipment. So they are planning it across different states so that every state gets a fair share of R&D funding from the ministry. And at the same time, they're establishing a coordinating agency, which is a national body, the National Center for Additive Manufacturing, which will be based in Hyderabad. It's a 65 crore project by the ministry. And that is the game plan there is, well, like you rightly mentioned, bringing together academia, industry and the government in one place. So Hyderabad has a rich presence of defense institutions. There is powder manufacturing that happens in ARCI. There are several institutions which do that. At the same time, there are big players from the defense sector which have their presence. So there is General Electric, there is Lockheed Martin. All of them are doing their own R&D and innovation, but they are doing it in silos. They are not cross-leveraging the expertise of the academia or the expertise of the startups at the same time. So the national center, the government vision is that it should bring together all these initiatives in such a way that they learn from each other, they grow together, and the objective being that the domestic market should benefit, reducing the import dependency as much as possible. That would be the summary.
That's very interesting what you pointed out, Devansh, and I think it's a huge project what the government has undertaken. And some of this has already come into application, Devansh. Has it already partly been implemented, or is it still in the implementation phase?
So the National Center has not yet been, the building has not started, but the project has been approved. But there are several centers which are active. There is one in Andhra Pradesh for medical equipment. There are several. There are around 7 manufacturing labs in Gujarat, and then there are Atal Innovation Labs which are doing grassroots innovation with a specific budget. There are activities, but they are not happening in a coordinated fashion, which is now a new. Once the strategy has come in place, now these things are falling in order.
Thank you, Devansh. So thank you, esteemed panelists. I think it was we covered a lot of topics under the additive manufacturing and its application in the maritime industry. We have a few questions have come up. We will take the questions from the audience. So I would also request the audience to put their questions in the Q&A box. I had one question, Admiral Verma, especially when we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India 2.0. So Admiral Verma, there is like construction industry, infrastructure industry can lead to a lot of employment generation. Shipbuilding is also one industry which has the potential for creating a lot of employment in the country. What I would like to ask you, Admiral Verma, how can the whole supplier network here, we have a lot of MSMEs operating in India, can they play a bigger role, especially when we talk about the shipbuilding industry?
Yeah, that's a very good question that you have asked. If you look at the shipbuilding industry, a shipyard per se, I would say does only 30% work. If you look at any shipbuilding company, and almost 70%, I'm talking both in terms of volume and cost, it gets outsourced. So the success of a shipbuilding industry and a shipyard depends on the MSME ecosystem that it develops around it. Unfortunately, in our country, that has been a gray area. There are MSMEs which are working for shipyards, but they are not in an ecosystem around. Like if you look at Maruti and go and see in Gurgaon, so they have the complete MSME ecosystem developed around the factory. And for years and years, if somebody is making a carburetor, he is making a carburetor for all the cars that will be built in that place. So that helps. And if you look at some of the foreign countries, I've been to Leningrad and I saw the shipyard in Russia. They also had the electrical manufacturers, the mechanical parts, and they're there for last 50 years supplying to the shipyard. So it's a very good point that you have brought out. While I was in GRSC, we did develop a lot of industries around our shipyard. Other shipyards are also trying, but definitely shipbuilding is one of the manufacturing industry which generates a very high level of employment because of the type of work that goes on in a shipbuilding. And if the MSMEs can be brought in through the industry bodies like CII and all that, that was the reason I got involved in CII initially. They made me the chairman of CII later on. So that's a very good point, and it must be done around every shipyard. And they can develop. Each shipyard can generate minimum 10 to 20,000 jobs around. It's a catchment area. So it's definitely giving impetus to shipbuilding industry in the country is a definite job creator for the nation.
Thank you, Admiral. Devansh, there is a question related from a startup, so maybe I'll direct it to you. We are a startup in additive manufacturing and we focus in large scale pattern making like propeller pattern making and hull model making. My question is, what is the possibility of 3D printing the pattern for large scale FRP boat hull? Or I'll also keep it open to any of our panelists if any. I don't know. Devansh, would you like to comment on that first?
Sure. So the innovation for 3D printing is limited to small and specialized parts. If we talk about the whole of the propeller and the whole of the hull in its own, I don't have insight specific to the shipping industry as such, but I would say that would be difficult. One good route would be to look for the innovation, corporate innovation programs with some of these shipbuilding units, where they will come up with the problem statements of the industry itself. So rather than going in the market with solutions, you should go and look for the problems first. And if there is a demand which comes in, that should drive your startup to build a business model around it.
So what you're saying, Devansh, is identify where the problem is and then look at the solutions you could provide.
Correct. But I don't have in-depth insights on this industry.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Can I say something here, Mr. Nath?
Yes, please. Please.
I just heard the question also included something about propellers. So what I would recommend whoever has asked this question, that propeller is a definite area of cooperation in the country, because most of the shipyards today are actually importing either the material or the propeller itself. So if we have a discussion, as Devansh mentioned, that if we discuss with the manufacturers, and they will make the problem statement, and propeller could be a very good area to cooperate and move forward.
Dr. Rahim, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah. Just coming back to the propeller issue, I mean, in India, we can easily do propeller manufacturing using additive manufacturing. There is the critical mass is there, because we need hundreds of tugboats, hundreds of fishing vessels. So all these need propellers, and so though not the large scale, at least in small scale sector, we can definitely start manufacturing using the additive manufacturing methodologies.
Thank you, Dr. In fact, there's one more question which I think is very interesting. I would maybe request Admiral Verma and Dr. Rahim to share their views. So, additive manufacturing requires manufacturing drawings. How do you expect the machinery manufacturer to share important drawings with the ship owners or spare part suppliers, either at a price or for free? I think this is an interesting question.
Yeah, but this question can be taken up in two ways. See, as he has rightly mentioned, and I mentioned while answering some of the question, that shipbuilder only makes the hull, and everything else comes from the industry thereafter. So machinery manufacturers, what they give us is the seating drawing. What seating means is that the machinery has to come and sit somewhere in the ship. So they give us the dimensions of the machinery as per the seating arrangements are concerned. The internal dimensions, internal parts of the machines, they don't share the machine those drawings with us. But that interface of the machine with the hull, that drawing they have to share with us. But what is the link with the additive manufacturing? I did not understand that part.
I think this is just like
okay. All right.
Manufacturer also. So he has since it's a new technology, there's proprietorship here. Yeah.
So if I may add, say for example, for the machinery, say for example the component, say for example you need a connecting rod. For that one, definitely you need the drawing from the manufacturer. The electronic data, then only you can manufacture. That you have to source it somehow. Either you have to buy it or make some understanding with the makers to supply it somehow. That's the only way out.
Mary, do you want to add something to this question?
I think this is a good question. Yeah, so we have PBF and DED process. PBF is for small part, maybe for machinery application. And there are many parts could be, it's feasible to fabricate it by the AM process. And the challenge is that part may be owned by the OEM. So we may have an agreement or a license to get drawing from the OEM. Sometimes it's challenging for us to get it. And some company or government have the idea. They buy the drawing and substitute it, and you make one part and pay that OEM some money based on the quantity of the part you make it. So it is still under discussion and under agreement. The AM is promising, but how to get the drawing and how to align with the OEM's license is important to expand the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, to your earlier comments, Admiral Verma, there's a question like the automotive industry helps to set up the vendor parks, so where the OEM is closely involved. That is not, in the shipping industry, that has not taken place, the so-called vendor or cluster developments. And what needs to be done there in that regard?
Yeah, so I think this part of this question was discussed a little earlier as well.
Right.
Well, the government has been seized with this issue, and all the shipyards have also been discussing among themselves. And I remember once in Delhi we had a discussion where it was decided that let's say in any ship there is a very important part, valve. Each ship would use something like thousands of valves. Now the valve manufacturers are scattered all over. Now Calcutta shipyard gets valve from Jalandhar. Bangalore shipyard, chap may be getting it from Indore, or it's like tender it out among them and whoever is L1. So there is a cluster development program which has been put in place at least 4 years ago. When I left the shipyard, it was there, and there was areas identified that the valves will be made here, pumps will be made here, motors will be made here, and they will cater for the requirement of all the shipyards. There are 5 major shipyards in the country and about 8 to 10 small shipyards. So that way cluster development program was on. I'm sure it must be further going up. That is one way of developing it. And second, most of the shipyard in any case, to meet their requirement, they have a lot of vendor development programs and try and develop the vendors around their vicinity so that it is easier for them to supply, outsource their requirement. So this is a very good question and it must be done, and I think the effort is on in that direction.
Any of the other panelists, would anyone like to add something to that?
Yeah, like I earlier mentioned, the procurement platforms from startups in this remote world, you don't necessarily have to be co-located for the vendor ecosystem to be very strong and robust. That there are several examples where digital, like we are doing this webinar, similarly we can do procurement processes also remotely. So things are changing because of the changing times.
Right. And I think also one point, Devansh, you had earlier mentioned about Moglix. I think one very interesting aspect was that most of their customers or people who are going and buying from their portal or the website are actually coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities. And especially I think this has been accelerated by the pandemic because where travel was difficult. So people have in tier 2, tier 3 cities have utilized such platforms for sourcing virtually or from the e-commerce platforms. Yeah. There is also an interesting question. I think a person is perhaps connected with the casting industry. So what he's asked is, when we compare additive manufacturing and the traditional industry, of course, we've discussed during our discussion that presently the cost of additive manufacturing is higher when we compare it with the traditional industry. But is there a possibility, what he is asking, of sharing of the, I think, of the orders between the traditional industry and the additive manufacturing industry? Because I think as we go ahead and as additive manufacturing picks up, I think to some extent it will impact also the suppliers from the traditional industry. So maybe Dr. Rahim, would you like to comment briefly on that?
Yeah, it all drills down to cost and quality and time.
Right.
So if a product can be manufactured with the right quality at the right time at a reasonable cost, people will go for that, whether it is additive manufacturing or traditional manufacturing. So that's why, as I mentioned before, so for example, one component, the ship is getting stranded for 2 months, then the downtime cost is huge. So if the charter rate is $30,000 for 2 months, that's about $6 lakh, and that's huge. So in that case, people don't mind going to get the product by additive manufacturing, even if the cost is very high. So it is actually an optimization between the cost, the time, and quality.
Absolutely. Right. Admiral Verma, any comments on this from your side?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Rahim. I would put it this way. In Industry 4.0, we are living in an age of disruption. So, and some time ago, we talked about, a skill. There is going to be disruption in the industry, and the person who has asked this question definitely has good knowledge of casting industry. And being a shipbuilder, I know this industry quite well. So the industry has to gear up, because the casting that we used to do earlier used to have a lot of errors and infirmities. So because there was days when there used to be carpenters who will make the mold, and additive, this technology is definitely going to be much more precise and quality, and slowly it will be adopted. So the traditional industry will have to gear up how to reskill and how to survive in that context I am talking about. So it will all, as Dr. Rahim said, it will all depend on cost, quality and time. So if that is going to work, then this technology will come and overtake the traditional way of...
Thank you, Abdul. So friends, I would perhaps like to conclude the panel discussion with the statement. I think as additive manufacturing continues to develop, we look forward towards its future in the marine and offshore sectors. The upsides of cost and time saving remain highly appealing for part replacement, complex items, and other small production volume fabrication requests also. As always, safety has to be prioritized. Reliability and consistency must continue to advance to meet the challenges associated with additive manufacturing's new application. So with that, I would like to sincerely thank all our esteemed panelists. I think it was a very frank and open discussion what we had, and since we had people from various fields and sectors, and they were also adding the perspective from the view of startups and automation. So I think it was quite a wholesome discussion, and thank you very much, Rear Admiral Anil Verma, for your points that you brought forth. Also, Dr. Rahim,
Thank you.
and Devansh. Thank you so much for this informative and insightful discussion. Thank you. And now I would like to hand over to Ranjit.
Thank you very much to all the panelists for an educative and engaging session. Thank you, Rear Admiral Anil Kumar Verma, Dr. Abdul Rahim, Mr. Devansh Pathak, Dr. Mary, and thank you, Mr. Nath, for steering this discussion so wonderfully. Special thanks to even Mr. Hajra for his presence. He, along with our advisory members, have been instrumental in advising Informa on this webinar topic and the speakers. 3D printing offers the maritime sector many potential benefits. It has the ability to change or impact shipping's supply chain as manufacturers and consumers adopt the technology increasingly. We need to explore how shipping and the maritime industry can be on the forefront of development and be part of the disruption. The current outlook suggests that emerging technologies, Industry 4.0, and related concepts will change the way the world operates. On this note, I would like to again thank our panelists and our participative and engaged audience who motivate us to bring in more and more programs to this industry. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Take care and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Best wishes.